See, this year's budget, in order to understand budget, or if we talk about the basic things with respect to budget, whenever you talk about budget, the first document, the first page of the budget talks about the roadmap for pursuit of Vikshit Bharat. So what is this Vikshit Bharat? Vikshit Bharat. Vikshit Bharat means we are moving ahead of times to reach this stage of Vikshit Bharat. Every budgetary document has highlighted this roadmap for the pursuit of Vikshit Bharat. Vikshit Bharat means in order to India become a developed nation, a developed country by the year 2024, by which means we will be reaching the 100th year of our independence. Within 100 years of our independence, our target is to make India a developed nation. So we are moving in this Amrit Kal period anedi vintaru kada. From 75 years of independence till we reach this Vikshit Bharat phase, we are in this period of transition phase of Amrit Kal, where we have to make all the actions, all the economic policies of the government should be inclined only to reach this particular objective of making India as a developed nation by 2024. So keeping this broader objective in mind, the government has come up with its budget. When I say budget, budget is something like the preamble in simple terms. Why? Because in preamble, if you look at the preamble, it will give you certain ingredients of your Constitution of India. Similarly, budget is also like a preamble, where it talks about the justice, where it talks about equality, where it talks about liberty of various sections of the society. If you look at the budget document, it will mention about all these aspects. So budget in simple terms can also be visualized as allocation of certain amount of money by the government in order to reach the objectives or goals of the preamble which are mentioned or instated in our Constitution. So budget means allocation of money in order to achieve the goals like ensuring liberty, ensuring equality, upliftment of the people. All these are the ingredients of preamble. So budget is basically providing you certain amount of money to reach these goals of the preamble. That is what is budget. That is how I look at budget. So all the principles that are enshrined in the budget will obviously leads to social justice, will give you certain equality, will uplift the people, and it will also provide liberty to the people as well. So all these are prevalent if you have an overview of the complete budget in your mind. This can be assessed, this can be visualized as well. So before understanding even the budget and all, again another classification of budget can be before looking at what are there in the budget, what are the proposals of the government going ahead for the further financial year. రేపు వచ్చే 1 yearలో గవర్నమెంట్ తీసుకొచ్చిన ఎకనామిక్ పాలసీస్ ఏంటి, ఎకనామిక్ డెసిషన్స్ ఏంటి, ఏ సెక్టార్లో ఎక్కడ ఎంత ఇన్వెస్ట్ చేస్తుంది గవర్నమెంట్, ఏ సెక్టార్స్ని అప్లిఫ్ట్ చేద్దాం అనుకుంటుంది, ఎవరికి ఇన్సెంటివైజ్ చేస్తుంది, ఎలాంటి కైండ్ ఆఫ్ స్కీమ్స్ పాలసీస్ గవర్నమెంట్ ఇంట్రడ్యూస్ చేస్తున్నారు, ఇవన్నీ అర్థం చేసుకునే ముందు ఫస్ట్ యూ నీడ్ టు హ్యావ్ ఇన్ యువర్ మైండ్ what are the problems that the country is facing, what are the problems that the country is witnessing now. If that is there in your mind, if you list down all the problems that we are facing as a nation today, on today, what are the major problems that the country is facing, if you are in a position to understand that, whatever the budget proposals that the government or the finance minister has put forward or given to this nation will be a solution for addressing all these problems. So if you look at the first document of the highlights of the budget, it says that it focused on four major castes. Caste means it is not the caste system which was prevalent in the traditional times, like Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudras, 4 caste system. It is not talking about the 4 castes that we have in place or existence. The government is focusing on the 4 different areas which I have termed as the problems that we are facing, where improvement and course correction or intervention on the part of the government is required. For example, the government is focusing on 4 castes. It includes the Garib. You need to address the concerns of the poor. The poor is one problem that we are facing. Second is Mahila. You need to take into consideration women. So there has to be some developmental aspects brought into the lives of women. Then it is talking about the youth, yuva. Without harnessing the potential and upskilling of the youth, you cannot reap the benefits of the demographic dividend. As we India possess this unique strength of having the largest demographic dividend in this world. In order to reap the benefits of this young generation, you need to provide certain benefits to the youth. You need to take them into consideration in your budget proposals. Similarly, the final fourth cash that the government budget is talking about is regarding Annadata. Annadata means the farmer. The farmer is also important in order to ensure food security of this nation. Without taking the concerns and the troubles of the farmer into consideration, you cannot ensure food security. If this is hampered, the whole economy can be collapsed. So these are the four major focus areas of the government which it has resembled in the name of four major caps. As I told you, these are the four major challenges that we are facing in the contemporary times also. Even today also, the major problems that we are facing in our country is with respect to farmers, with respect to the youth, with respect to the poor people, and with respect to the women. If the concerns and problems of all these four sections of the people are addressed, then we can ensure that our country will be moving ahead in the right direction to be categorized as the developed nation or Vikshit Bharat by 2024. So these segments of the people has to be addressed. So this is what is the major crux, major themes or major focus areas of the government in this particular financial year 2024 and 25. So the budget has been focusing on these four major aspects. That is the overall impression that I can take from this particular introductory document which was provided. Going further, next it is talking about the budget theme. What is the budget theme? So, as we have already identified the four major problems that we need to address in this current financial year, it is the poor, the farmer, the youth, and the women. When we have identified these four key areas, four key themes, then it is focusing on various aspects. The major budget theme for this current financial year has been focusing on these four aspects: employment, skilling, MSMEs, and the middle class. If you could observe the major themes of this budget, the major themes have been talking about only these four dimensions. If you could interlink the theme of the budget with the four problems that we have seen, the four major problems that we have seen, the four major casts that it has mentioned about. What are the four major casts that it is talking about? Poor, it is talking about youth, it is talking about women, and it is talking about farmer. So these are the four major focus areas of the budget. So when they are focusing on these four major focus areas, four major casts that the budget has mentioned, the budget theme has been addressing four major issues. These four major issues are addressing directly or indirectly the problems of these four major focus areas also. If you take, for example, the poor, in order to bring about a change in the poor people, what is required? You need to provide employment to them. Only if you could provide employment to them, the lives of the poor or the standard of living of these poor people can be brought about a change. So employment can be directly interlinked to poor. Poor requires employment. If you provide poor people with certain employment facilities, obviously they can be brought out of their poverty. So you can interlink this theme of budget, employment, how it is addressing the poor sections of the society. Similarly, you also have to harness the demographic dividend. You have to do something for this country's youth. What do youth need? They need, obviously, youth require employment. In order to get employment for the youth, they have to be skilled. Without skills, how could employment be generated for the youth? So there has to be certain aspects, there has to be certain schemes which will provide skills to the youth of this nation. So there are certain proposals within the budget which addresses the skilling aspect as well. What kind of skills we can provide? That has been mentioned in the budget also. If there is skills, then we can provide employment to the youth also. So their concern is also met. Next, if you talk about women, what is required for women? What is required for women? You need to provide employment opportunities for women. You need to enhance the skills of the women. You also need to provide certain kinds of funding to women also. If the government is proactively providing certain collateral, if no collateral based loans to the people or the women sections of the society, various self-help groups are there. If we are giving them various kinds of incentive based loans without any kind of collateral, if you give them funding, the women are capable and they can take up any kind of employment opportunities. So they have that skill, they have that capability. So funding is also another issue. When you talk about women, you have to provide some kind of financial incentives to the women. Some kind of skill set has to be enhanced among the women, and also you need to provide certain employment facilities on par with men for the women also. So when you talk about the funding aspects for the women, there comes the role of MSMEs. MSMEs means medium, small, micro, small and medium enterprises. So in these micro, small and medium enterprises, if the funding is provided, if the economic incentives are provided to these MSME sectors, most of the women can get access to these funding and they can bring about a change for this nation. So women's aspect is also addressed. Then the farmer. For the farmer, what is required? Same. Minimum incentives, minimum remuneration for the farmer to take up his activities. Not only that, you have to incentivize him in order to provide certain incentives, certain benefits, certain subsidies, so that he will be taking up his own occupation, which will be helpful for the country in the form of food security. Food security is again a critical issue. Without thinking about the food security aspect, if the production levels within the country declines, if there is no adequate focus given to the agriculture sector in this country, there will be lot of trickle down effects that will be happening, which means it has a vicious cycle. If the agricultural needs were not satisfied, the economic system cannot ensure stability. So there has to be certain kind of agricultural practices which have to be promoted, which will be in lines of resilient agricultural practices, which ensures environmental sustainability. Agricultural practices has to be climate resilient, which will ensure sustainability of your environment. So all the practices which were followed by the farmers has to be climate resilient, which will ensure sustainability of your environment. So those practices has to be adopted in the form of natural farming and చెప్పి ఇలాంటి ప్రాక్టీసెస్ని ఫార్మర్కి ఇన్సెంటివైజ్ చేసి సబ్సిడైజ్ చేసి ఫార్మర్కి అలాంటి ఆపర్చునిటీస్ క్రియేట్ చేస్తే then we can ensure food security as well. It will be a win-win situation if we could incentivize and make the farmer to adopt to the climate resilient agricultural practices. So that is also required in order to address this particular issue. So all these things are interconnected. All these three aspects are interconnected: employment, skilling, MSMEs. In order to get employment, you require skills. So if you have skills, if you have employment, obviously MSMEs, micro, small and medium enterprises, could be an avenue for you in order to provide. That is at least a hope that employment can be provided for anyone in micro, small and medium enterprises also, if both these skills are possessed by any particular person. Obviously, if there is all these things happening in consonance with each other, the status of the middle class people in this country will be elevated. It will be ensured. So this is the major theme of the budget. If you predominantly look at from an outer perspective, this budget in a single word, if I could look at this, it visibles to be like an employment based budget. The major aspect of this year's budget is focusing on skilling and employment of the people. Single agenda Everything is interconnected. Only providing an employment and upgrading the skills of these people is the single line agenda of this current financial year's budget. From this we can derive that, at least from this understanding. Again, moving ahead, if you talk about the priorities across various sectors, as I told you, we have come up with various objectives, the budget priorities. What are the priorities of the budget? According to this understanding, after identifying the focus areas and the themes of the budget, the government has come up with budget priorities. It has identified 9 areas as its priority areas, where it will be devolving funds into these particular areas, which will ensure the economic growth, and it will also have an impact on the lives of all the people that it has mentioned in the first place. So, path for stronger development and all-round prosperity can be ensured if we focus on these 9 aspects. Overall development, strong development and all-round prosperity of all the people can be ensured by focusing on these 9 priority areas. First priority is talking about productivity and resilience in agriculture. How to ensure productivity in agriculture and how can we make the practices of agriculture resilient. That is the first priority area. Secondly, it is emphasizing on employment and skilling aspect. There you need to upskill the people and you need to provide the employment opportunities to them. Thirdly, it is talking about inclusive human resource development and social justice. How to enhance, how to enrich the human resource development, which will also leads to social justice. What are the various sections of the society that requires immediate attention? What are the schemes that are provided by the government in this current budget, which addresses the aspirations and needs of the tribals? So there are various schemes which are introduced to address this component of social justice as well. Social justice ensure cheyadaniki there are certain schemes which are provided to certain tribal populations also. Then it is focusing on priority area is on manufacturing and services as well. On manufacturing and services sector, what could be the economic policies in the coming one financial year. Then it also emphasized on the concept of urban development as well. What initiatives can be taken with respect to urban development. It is also talking about energy security. How the green energy can be harnessed so that whatever the energy security needs that we are dependent upon, it has to be in lines with the energy, the green energy practices. New and renewable energy ki ekkuva shift avvali rather than depending on the fossil fuel based energy requirements. So that has been mentioned under this energy security and what are the incentives that are provided to various. Then it is also talking about the infrastructure development in the country. Urban, rural infrastructure development, highlighting the importance of various coastal areas, highlighting the importance of various industrial corridors which was established across north, east and west and south, and it has identified certain designated areas as nodes through which the infrastructure or industrial corridors will be developing, so that a lot of world-class infrastructure can be established and tourism can also be brought in these particular areas. Then it is talking about the kind of innovation, research and development that has to take place within the country. We need to foster innovation. Innovation, research, all these things has to be enhanced. Then what are the next generation reforms that are required in order to ensure fiscal federalism of this country? All these aspects has to be taken into consideration. So these are the 9 priority sectors that the budget is mentioning about. Each and every detail of all these 9 aspects has to superficially be looked into.